All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a 2,500-year-old philosophical mystery from an ancient Buddhist text called the Khemaka Sutta. And what's wild is how perfectly it captures our own modern struggles with the ego, self-identity, and that nagging feeling of who we actually are. It's a fascinating story, blending some incredibly deep psychological insight with, honestly, a surprising amount of situational comedy. Now, the whole setup of our story relies on a stark physical distance and a pretty massive contrast in situations. Over on one side, at a place called Kosida's Park, you've got a group of senior, perfectly healthy elder monks who are deep into their philosophical inquiry. Then, all the way across town at the Jujube Tree Park, there's Venerable Khemaka, who is severely ill, diseased, and in terrible pain. And caught right in the middle of this is another monk, Venerable Dasaka, who's about to become an incredibly overworked messenger. So the elders send Dasaka over to check on Khemaka, and we start with a pretty dire health update. Khemaka basically tells him, "I'm not getting better, my friend. I'm not comfortable. My extreme pains are increasing, not lessening." Dasaka runs all the way back to the elders with this grim news. But instead of, sending medicine or rushing over to comfort him, the elders respond by ironically kicking off a relentless, deep philosophical interrogation. It literally turns into an almost comedic relay race. The elders send Dasaka back to the sickbed to ask a highly technical question about the nature of the self. Khemaka manages to give a nuanced philosophical answer. Dasaka runs back. The elders find a loophole in that answer, and boom, they send Dasaka right back to the sickbed with another question. Poor Dasaka is just sprinting back and forth, delivering rapid-fire questions about enlightenment, while Khemaka is literally just trying to survive his illness in bed. I absolutely love this next moment. After several rounds of this exhausting marathon, Khemaka reaches his absolute breaking point. You can almost hear the heavy sigh of frustration. He stops Dasaka and just says, "Enough, friend Dasaka. What is accomplished by this running back and forth? Fetch me my staff." Despite his severe illness and the extreme pain he's in, Khemaka grabs his walking stick and decides to hike all the way across town to Kosida's Park to confront these elders directly. Section 1. The 5 clinging aggregates, breaking down the self. To understand why they were harassing a sick man in the first place, we quickly need to define the term at the center of all those messages, the clinging aggregate. In this framework, a clinging aggregate is simply a physical or mental component of a human being that we mistakenly attach ourselves to. We cling to these components and wrongly assume, hey, this is me, or this is my core self. According to the text, there are exactly 5 of these clinging aggregates that make up our entire human experience. Form is your physical body. Feeling is your basic sensation of pleasure, pain, or neutral. Perception is your ability to recognize and label things. Fabrications are your complex thoughts, urges, and emotions. And consciousness is your base awareness of it all. The elders were basically grilling Khemaka to see if he identified with any of these 5 things. Section 2. The I am paradox. Head knowledge versus heart knowledge. This brings us to the central mystery. When Dasaka was running back and forth, Khemaka clearly stated he didn't identify with any of his aggregates. Hearing that, the elders concluded, well, he must be enlightened. But Khemaka insisted he wasn't, and that's the profound paradox here. Intellectually, he knows he isn't his body or his mind, but on a deeper level, he admits a painful truth. A vague, lingering sense of I am has still not been overcome. He has the head knowledge of selflessness, but his heart, his deep inner experience, still fundamentally feels a lingering ego presence. So when Khemaka finally arrives at their park, leaning heavily on his staff, the elders ask him a somewhat exasperated question. They essentially ask, look, if you aren't your body and you aren't your mind, but you still feel an I am, then what exactly is this I am you're talking about? They are just totally confused by the nuance he's bringing to the table. Section 3. The scent of the lotus. To answer them, Khemaka provides this brilliant analogy. Instead of giving them more dry philosophy, he asks the elders a fantastic question. Imagine a beautiful lotus flower. If you try to pinpoint exactly where the scent of that flower comes from, can you isolate it? Is the smell located exclusively in the petals? Is it in the color? Is it tucked away in the filament? If someone claimed the smell belonged to just one specific part of the flower, would they be right? The elders reply, no, friend. Exactly. It is simply the scent of the flower as a whole. And this is exactly how Khemaka explains his lingering ego. The I am isn't specifically the physical form. It isn't specifically the feelings or the thoughts or the consciousness. It's a residual conceit, a subtle obsession hovering over the entire human experience. You can't point to it, but just like the scent of a lotus, it's undeniably there. Section 4. The washed cloth, erasing the residue. So if the ego is like a pervasive scent, how do you actually get rid of it? Well, Khemaka walks the elders through an ancient washerman's process. Imagine a heavily soiled piece of cloth. First, the washerman scrubs it with harsh cleaning agents. We're talking things like salt earth, lye, or even cow dung. Second, he rinses it in clear water. Now the cloth is visually spotless. But there's a problem. It still smells like the harsh lye or cow dung used to clean it. So a third step is required. The clean cloth has to be placed into a special scent-infused wicker hamper. Only after sitting in that hamper is the lingering chemical smell finally obliterated. This directly connects that ancient laundry process to the mind. Getting the heavy dirt out, abandoning your worst attachments and bad habits, is really only the first phase. You might be a highly disciplined, moral person, just like a visually spotless cloth. But even after you clean up your act, a faint, stubborn smell of the ego remains. You still have that residual I am obsession clinging to you. So what's the mental equivalent of the scent-infused hamper? Khemaka explains that the only way to clear out that final lingering smell of the ego is continuous, dedicated meditation on how our physical and mental states constantly change. You have to watch how your body, your feelings, and your thoughts constantly arise and disappear. By deeply observing that absolutely nothing is permanent, that everything is just a fleeting process, the lingering I am conceit is eventually obliterated. Section 5. Erasing the ego, the climax at Kosambi. Keep in mind, Khemaka is delivering this absolute masterclass while leaning on his staff suffering from a severe illness. The elders are just absolutely floored by his clarity. They validate his earlier frustration, essentially apologizing for making him hike all the way over there. They admit they pushed him so hard with Dosaka's messages purely because they knew he had the deep wisdom required to make this incredibly complex idea undeniably plain. They knew he had the answers, they just needed him to articulate them. And here is the sheer power of the knowledge he just dropped on them. The text states that, right then and there, while simply listening to this single explanation about the lotus scent and the washed cloth, the minds of 60-some monks were fully released. 60 monks reached full enlightenment just from hearing this brilliantly structured breakdown. But even better, the story has an amazing personal payoff. Khemaka himself, the sick, exhausted monk who was just trying to get some rest, achieved his own full release right there while explaining it to them. In the very act of describing how to obliterate the lingering ego, his own lingering scent of I am completely vanished. To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought based on this 2,500-year-old interaction. Turn Khemaka's realization inward. You probably know intellectually that you're more than just your physical appearance or your passing thoughts, but ask yourself, where is your ego hiding right now? What is the lingering scent of I am that you still smell in your daily life? And how might you begin to wash it away? Think on that for a bit, and I'll see you in the next explainer.